Good morning. Welcome to the second episode of our Ocean Lore series that we're doing for the Oceans of Possibilities 2022 summer reading program at the Hagerstown Public Library. Today we're going to talk about underwater cities and sunken continents, which is my favorite topic in this series. We're going to talk about two different varieties of sunken cities and sunken continents. They are mythological or fictional ones. We will talk about those first, and then we are going to talk about some actual ones, including some very modern ones.
Yes.
So I'm Miss Jennifer.
I'm Miss Heather, and let's get started. All right, so the first place, mythological, we're going to talk about El Dorado. So a lot of people have, like my age, I guess, and older, have seen the Disney version of, the Gold City of El Dorado, and it was just something that kind of flies past your radar unless you were like kind of obsessed with history and mythology like we were. So this is what this was. It was the mythical golden city of gold, believed to have sunk into a lake. The legends of the city were built from rumors that were told by the Spanish through the 16th century and led to countless expeditions and discovery of the regions where it is believed to have been. Over the centuries, there's also a great deal of destruction caused, especially to the lake, was commonly rumored to be the location of the city, Lake Parami, before it was given up as probably a myth in the 19th century. The lake had actually been drained on multiple occasions just to explore it and see if there was something actually in there, and it actually now it's got to the point where any further exploration has to be by computer model renderings. So it's something that, the conquistadors, the Spaniards, heard wind of and just started exploring like they would usually do when they went on adventures and explorations.
Because everybody'd like to find a lost city of gold.
Yeah.
The second one that we're going to talk about is the underwater city of Kitsch. Kitsch is an underwater city in Russia that is supposed to be populated by spiritual people. The legend of Kitsch is that it was built sometime during the life of Georgie II, Grand Prince of Vladimir. He built the town, and that's where he ruled. And then late in the 1230s, the army of the Mongolian leader Batu Khan advanced upon the city with the intention of killing everybody inside the city and stealing their wealth, like the Mongols did. The legend is that the army of the Golden Horde, which is what they would call the Mongol army, advanced on the city. They saw no fortifications or even people intending to defend themselves. Instead, the whole population of the city was engaged in fervent praying, asking God for salvation. Before the army could attack them, countless fountains of water burst from the ground, and the town was submerged into a lake, with the last thing that the Mongols saw being a glaring dome of a cathedral with a cross on top of it as the city went underwater. The claim is that any individuals who are pure of heart and soul will find their way to Kitsch, where their spirits will remain pure.
So very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, you got the last name of Khan. It kind of goes with raiding and pillaging.
Yes.
Kind of. So the next one we have is Avalon. It is the mythical lost island in Arthurian, Cornish, and Welsh legends. So think about King Arthur and the Round Table and all the knights. This is where this comes from. The exact location of where Avalon is supposed to be is something widely disputed among a lot of historians who have just studied the legends and mythology of Arthur. It is believed to be an island that is commonly associated with Morgan Le Fay, and it is supposed to be the final resting place of King Arthur. So this is something very sought after, I would say, in the Middle Ages and story time stuff.
As a counterpoint to the lost island of Avalon, there is the lost land of Lionese. Lionese was another land during Arthurian legend for reasons that I suppose have to do with the number of lakes and bodies of water around them. The Arthurian legends seem to have a lot of underwater and in the water things. Mm-hmm. But Lionese was populated by people who committed such a terrible crime that they upset God, and he took revenge upon them in their land. The legend tells of a horrific storm that occurred over the course of a single night, which resulted in an enormous wave that swallowed the kingdom, and everything in its path was lost. In the areas where the kingdom is believed to have been, there were stories of a man who actually escaped the storm and survived. He fled the area on a horse. The story was that the man had been out hunting and fell asleep under a tree. I'm not real sure how that would work.
Rumpelstiltskin.
When he was awoken by a terrible noise. There is no evidence of this place existing, but there are many legends and tales told by fishermen who claim that on calm days they can hear the bells of the churches that were lost in the destruction of the city.
Rumpelstiltskin's not the name I was thinking of.
No, you're thinking of Rip Van Winkle.
Rip Van Winkle, that's the one. Same area though, we'll just go with that. So next we have, it is spelled as Y-S. So I had asked Jennifer, I was like, what is this? This is Y's? She goes, it's E's. I'm like, so this is literally what I wrote was E's at the bottom of my page. So that's the next one. A mythical drowned city in Brittany. The city was supposed to be built on the land that had been reclaimed from the sea and was ruled by King Grandland. The king or his daughter, Princess Dehut, depending upon the legend, angered God. So there's a lot of like angering God and him taking wrath. Either the king or his reckless daughter opened the dikes of the city, thinking they are opening the city gates to cause the city to be flooded. As the sea reclaimed the city, the king attempts to ride away with his daughter on horseback, and he either throws his daughter from the horse or she falls off the horse. There's varying stories, enabling him to escape. In the legend, his daughter transforms into a mermaid who continues to haunt the sea. So this is where the mermaids start kind of merging in our stories.
The next one I want to mention is a place called Shangri-La. Shangri-La is a fictitious valley in Tibet. It was first described in the 1933 novel Lost Horizons by the English author James Hilton. Hilton described Shangri-La as a mystical and harmonious valley at the western end of the Kunlun Mountains. Shangri-La is actually one of those places that has become very popular in mythology and pop culture. Shangri-La exists in a lot of different books and comic books and movies. So yeah, that's another one.
Okay, so the next one we have, it comes from the Middle East. It is called the Irem of Pillars. So I have a picture to show you, but I will read you the background of it. So some legends suggest that the city perished in a sandstorm, but most popular belief is if it collapsed into a sinkhole that hosted a well filled with groundwater. So that was taken to irrigate surrounding oases, and the water reclaimed the city with its lofty pillars as a punishment. So it just kind of sunk in the city. So this is what it was supposed to look like. So you've got these very big column of pillars, and that's why they call it Irem of Pillars. And the other, it also had another nickname I was looking into last night, and it's also known the Atlantis of the Sands. So that's something kind of interesting I was able to find.
We're having a little camera issue, sorry. The last city that I want to mention is a city called R'lyeh. It is spelled R''Lyeh. This is supposed to be an underwater sunken city in the South Pacific. This is where the entity Cthulhu lives, hibernates, or is imprisoned. This fictional city was first mentioned in the H.P. Lovecraft story, The Call of Cthulhu, which was published in Weird Tales, which was a magazine, in February of 1928. The city is described as having a coastline of mingled mud, ooze, and weedy cyclopean masonry, which can be nothing less than a tangible substance of Earth's supreme terror. H.P. Lovecraft had a very interesting way of writing.
Very descriptive.
And it's referred to as the Nightmare City, with bizarre architecture that is meant to hamper exploration of the city and escape. Lovecraft even provides coordinates for where the city is supposed to be in the area of the Pacific Ocean that is the farthest from any landmass. But that is the place where, according to the myths of the great ones that H.P. Lovecraft talked about, that is where they are held. And his stories suggest that one day this city will rise up from the ground and it will be the end of days. So there's a lot of religious connotation in a lot of these sunken cities. There's a lot of references to some kind of religious punishment or imprisonment or saving them.
Yeah.
God saving them.
Definitely. And it's like you mentioned last week about, depending on where the societies were, it was either fear-based or very religious-based on how they prayed to the gods or what they prayed for or didn't pray for.
Mm-hmm. And now we're going to jump into mythological continents. So everybody who's familiar with the globe, there are huge land masses on the planet. There are also huge areas where there's bodies of water, and in the 1800s, there was a lot of speculation that those areas may have once also held land that, through some kind of disaster, sank beneath the water, and that's the reason that it's not accessible. The first of these I'm going to talk about is a place called Mu. Mu, spelled M-U, is the name of a hypothetical vanished continent. This mythical idea of a land of Mu first appeared in the works of British-American antiquarian Augustus Laplagian.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
In 1864, after his investigations of Mayan ruins in the Yucatan. He claimed that he had translated the first copies of the Popol Vuh, which is a sacred book of the Kitsch, from ancient Mayan, using Spanish language to translate it, which probably wasn't accurate. He claimed that the civilization of Yucatan was older than those of Greece and Egypt, and told the story of an even older continent. A number of other individuals also tried to find proof of this place, sometimes attributing it and confusing their facts and information with pieces about two other mythological continents called Atlantis and Lemuria.
So then that leads into Atlantis. Everybody has their own version of what they think Atlantis looks like, was like, and what happened there. It's all over mythological sea shanties. Everybody's talked about them. You hear them in music, you see them in movies, you see them in books, or read them in books. You don't see them in books. Your imagination does.
There's also games.
There's games
about Atlantis.
Yeah, and TV shows. Like she brought up Stargate Atlantis. And then there's the Disney thing of Atlantis. So, probably the most well-known of all. Is it fictional? Is it a legend passed down from a real place? It's been featured in stories, songs, books, and TV show. So, we're going to do a little bit more deeper dive into Atlantis, just because people knew about it, but this is kind of where it came from. So, Atlantis was a story that Plato told about Atlantis around 360 BC. Founders, he said, were half god, half human. Plato said Atlantis existed about 9,000 years ago before his time. So 9,000 years previous to his time.
Which is a long time ago to begin with.
Yeah, Plato's a while back.
Okay. The last mythological continent is Lemuria. Lemuria is a fictional legend that was first proposed in 1864 by a zoologist who was attempting to explain why there are so many unusual life forms on the island of Madagascar. He believed that it used to be connected to India, Australia, and southern Africa in a massive land bridge. And he even believed that that land bridge was populated by an ancient race of people that he called Lemurians. Lemurians, he even provided a physical description, had 6 arms, but they were humanoid, and they looked like some kind of alien god human hybrid.
Interesting.
The stories that came from this found their way into many songs and writings, but it was eventually discounted as complete fiction. But now we're going to transition into actual sunken places. In 2013, a place called Marita, was discovered in approximately the exact same location and was an actual continental shelf that had sank underwater 84 million years ago. Marita was a Precambrian microcontinent that was situated between India and Madagascar until it separated about 70 million years ago as part of continental shifting. So that is actually a legend that turned out to have a little bit of basis in truth.
Yeah.
But when it was discovered, they opted not to call it Lemuria because they didn't want to have an association with the fictional stories.
Exactly, which is kind of cool. There's always like a little bit of truth to that fiction, but you got to find that fine line and actually put in the work and discover that. So the next we have is the known submerged lands. So Jennifer gets to kick that one off.
The first one is Zealandia. This is a scientifically accepted continent that is now 94% submerged under the Pacific Ocean. This is an area that is between New Zealand and New Caledonia. So it's actually right alongside of the one that I just mentioned.
So the next one we have is Greater Adria, Adriatic Sea, all that stuff. And it's still in that same area because that was such a big area that broke off and made those different continents and new continents. And there was just little pieces that kind of fell into place or sunk underwater. So Great Adria is a continent that once connected Italy and North Africa. So there, and it was about, the research I did was, it was about the size of Greenland, and was part of the supercontinent of Gondwana. So there's your...
The next one is a fun name. If you're familiar with where the British Isles, Great Britain, Ireland, and Scotland are, there was a place called Dodgerland. It was the bed of the North Sea, which connected Great Britain to continental Europe before it was lost to rising sea levels. So there used to be a swath of land through there, and that wasn't an island, it was an extension of Europe.
Yep. So the next one we have and last one we have is called Strand. So Strand was an island off the coast of Germany where the town Rungholt was located. It was badly eroded by storm surges and then washed away by a flood in 1634. And Germany actually does claim this area. It was off the German shores and it was part of Germany at one time.
Now we're going to talk about a few known submerged towns and cities. Some of these places were lost to catastrophic disaster, and some of them were actually lost to human industrialization in a more modern time. We're going to talk about those just a little bit as well, but Heather's going to kick us off.
So the first one we have is called Port Royal, and it's in southeastern Jamaica. So it's very familiar if you watch the Pirates of the Caribbean or anything about pirate folklore, shanties, whatever. It was a very big popular city because of it being a port city. It was great for shipping. At the time, they were known for slave trade. In that time, that was what it was about. So founded in 1494 by the Spanish in southeastern Jamaica. It was founded in 1494 by the Spanish. It was once the largest city in the Caribbean, but was almost entirely destroyed by an earthquake and accompanying tsunami on June 7, 1692. Gradually, it was rebuilt, but another city in the region became more predominant. Another earthquake in 1907 destroyed nearly all the rebuilt city and submerged additional parts into the water. So apparently that place was not meant to be. And some of the interesting things I found was once called the wickedest city because it was so overrun with pirates, slavers, and we'll just call ladies of the night. That's where we'll leave it. That 1 out of 4 buildings was either a bar or a brothel because of the port city. And this is what it was supposed to look like. And that was a rendering of what they said it was. So very Pirates of the Caribbean. Think about that.
The next place I want to talk about is an ancient an ancient Greek polis, which is a Greek city-state known as Halaike. Halaike was submerged by a tsunami in the winter of 373 BC. This city was founded in the Bronze Age, so it was very old, and it was a cultural and religious center with a military force that participated in the Trojan War. It was destroyed in a huge catastrophe that was attributed to the vengeance of Poseidon. So again, religious association with it. The destruction of this city was well documented and described when it happened because there were lots of witnesses. The residents of the city ignored warning signs for several days before it actually happened. For, I think it was 5 or 6 days, they had several warning signs that included all of the animals and vermin, rats, fleeing the city, and immense columns of flames that erupted out of the ground in different places in the city. After ignoring this, overnight, the city and some of the surrounding area sunk below the ground in a massive sinkhole, and it was all covered over by the sea. All of the inhabitants of this city perished, and it also pulled 10 Spartan ships that were anchored in a nearby harbor, drug the current of the water moving down into it as well. There were actual rescue attempts made, and every one of them failed. There were like 2,000 rescue attempts that surrounding areas sent men in trying to help, and additional people were lost that way. There are some people believe that the submergence of Halaike might have been the actual inspiration, though, for Plato's stories of Atlantis.
Yeah. So that kind of goes on, you know, if you want to go into like more Greek stuff like Pompeii, they had all kinds of warning signs, but they're like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's a sleeping mountain.
So you should pay attention to what the earth is doing.
Yeah, if animals run, there's probably an issue. Okay, so the next one we have is out of ancient Egypt, Menophis, devoted to the Egyptian goddess Isis and the god of Serpis, probably submerged under the sea as a result of a catastrophic natural cause towards the end of 2nd century BC.
The next one is Pablo Petri. It is the oldest submerged lost city that has ever been located in the Mediterranean Sea. It's located off the coast of southern Laconia in Greece, and is unique in having almost the entire mapped city present beneath the water. This is a fully intact city that when they first discovered it, they could film like they were moving vehicles through the streets. I mean, everything has damage and stuff, but the streets, the buildings, and even the tombs where they buried their dead are all complete and visible. The ruins have been dated to 2800 BC, and there are signs of Bronze Age Middle Minoan materials found there. It is believed to have been submerged in 10,000 BC as a result of an earthquake in the area. And that whole area had a lot of sinkholes, volcanic activity. It had tsunamis and earthquakes, and so the weather, it was a very dangerous place to live because the ground was very unstable in that region, but it made lots of legends and stories.
Absolutely. So next we're going to go to somewhere more closer to home, not across the sea. This one is from Monticello, California, so this is pretty recent. A town in Napa County, which is where our good wine comes from here in the U.S., supposedly. It is now almost completely covered by Lake Berryessa that was created by the dam built in Puta Creek, Monticello Dam, which was completed in 1957 to form a reservoir. There was a Life magazine photographic documentary done on the death of a town, but there was displacements of the residents, but it was not actually published. There was displacements of residents that used to live there, but the magazine ended up not publishing that piece.
Because they didn't want to bring a lot of attention to what they were doing. The Life magazine didn't publish it, but it did get published in a photography magazine, but it was overlooked by most of the general public unless you were a photographer. The next one we're going to talk about, and these two are actually ones that were intentionally sunk.
Flooded.
These were flooded so that they could take more water to California. They wanted to make sure that their agriculture in California thrived. Now there's speculation that maybe that contributes to the water problems that they're having in California now because it was meddled with too much.
Yep.
Another one is Loyston, Tennessee. Did I say that right?
I think it's Lewiston, yeah.
Okay, Lewiston, Tennessee, which is a ghost town in Union County, Tennessee, that was flooded by waters of the Clinch River after Norris Dam was built in 1936. The town was originally settled in the early 1800s, building up around a foundry that was built along State Highway 61 and became a major trading center for local farmers. But the government of that area wanted to build this dam and create a bigger body of water. So they invited residents to sell their land to the group that was doing it.
I think it was the TVA, Tennessee
Yeah, I
Valley
think
Authority.
it was the TVA that did it. There was not a lot of excitement from the residents who were going to be losing their homes, but they didn't really give them a lot of choice. They offered to move the families to more fertile agricultural area, but the families that were from there actually just moved over a mountain to kind of try to keep their community together as well as they could. But the area that they moved into was actually not very good agricultural area, and so it didn't thrive. But that is a man-made sunken city.
Yep.
And I have a picture. This is Loyston, Tennessee in 1933. A picture from the town. That's what the buildings and things look like. And this is that same area now. This is what it looks like now. No buildings in sight.
Nope.
And since most of those buildings, if not all of them, were made of wood, they probably were destroyed.
There are some pictures I was able to look at last night. There are some remnants left, but not very much, just because of how the minerals and the breakdown of, like she said, with them being wood is. And now it's a popular place to go to Norris Lake and go boating.
So that is our review of some famous and infamous sunken cities and sunken continents. We hope that you enjoyed everything, and we will have another lesson next week on ocean legends, monsters, and things of the deep seas.
Things that go bump in the seas.
Yes.
All right, guys, we'll see you later.